Hello everyone, this is part 6 of What If Naruto Was Reborn as a Shinigami, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Naruto cringed when he heard Tenten shout his name. He ducked his head, closed his eyes, and waited for the punch, but it never came. Opening his eyes, he found Tenten in front of him with her arms crossed and her foot tapping a mad rhythm into the dirt. She raised an eyebrow and looked at him expectantly. Well what? Don't you have something to say? No. Her eyes narrowed and she grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, jerking him forward so that their noses touched and his eyes were locked to hers. His vision darted back and forth, looking at the people who had stopped on the street to watch the spectacle. He turned his gaze back to the front and prepared himself for whatever she had in store. You asshole, I told you when I was leaving to go on a mission, but you have the gall to just leave without notifying me. I thought you were better than that. But Tenten, I had to leave quickly. I didn't have time to find you. You couldn't have left a note. You couldn't have sent a toad. You see, deciding that she had punished and humiliated him enough, Tenten let him off the hook. Leaning in, she captured his lips in hers, leaving him with wide eyes and a very shocked expression. Letting go of his collar, she stood back with her hands on her hips and a smirk on her face. You ever go off without telling me again and I'll pound you into the ground at our next training session. Now for punishment, you owe me a nice dinner of my choosing, whenever I want. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Good. Now follow me. Naruto trailed after the brown-haired bombshell, leaving many confused spectators in their wake. The girl looked like she was going to K the blonde only moments before and then let him off with a kiss and a promise to buy her dinner. Why couldn't the women in their lives be like that? Kakashi had finally finished giving his report to Tsunade and she had dismissed him, but he wouldn't leave just yet. She raised an eyebrow and put her cheek in her hand, while leaning on the desk. You have more to say, Kakashi. Yes, Hokage-sama, I do. I want to plead with you not to transfer Naruto to another unit. Sakura and I need him. We're not a fully functioning unit without him. Why can't you do without him? From what I've seen of your missions over the past few months, Naruto is your go-to guy, the frontline fighter. If he's not comfortable with the two of you anymore, why make yourselves and him miserable? I can place another heavy hitter on your team to replace Naruto and everyone will be happy. I won't be. Naruto is my student, my responsibility. I've taught him since day one and I won't have him taught by anyone else. Tsunade sighed and took a deep breath, thinking of how she wanted to word this. Kakashi, no offense, but the only things you've taught Naruto were tree walking and the cage bunshin method of training, and that was a joint effort with Yamato. Sakura might have warmed up to him some over the years, but as far as I can tell, she still harbors feelings for the Uchiha, regardless of the fact that he's a traitor. Naruto, in recent days, has told me he no longer wants to pursue him and that is a major factor of your unit. Give me one good reason for not allowing him to transfer. No one else will put up with Naruto except Guy, and I know that he can't train 4 students. I have the most experience in dealing with him when the QB tries to come out and you can't deny that. Please Hokage-sama, I never ask for much, don't break up my team, they're all I have left. Tsunade tapped her finger on the desk for a moment before swiveling her chair toward the window, the back of it facing Kakashi so he couldn't see her face. I'll think about it. Dismissed. Thank you Hokage-sama. Kakashi shunshined away and Tsunade continued to look out the window. Why oh why, can't I ever have a normal day when that brat's around? Naruto followed Tenten obediently to their preferred training grounds and nearly ran into her when she whipped around suddenly. He stood stock still while she circled him, poking and prodding the chains and checking out his clothing, before a smirk came across her face and she smacked him on the ass. He let out a yelp and glared at her. What the hell was that for? Just because. Now, why don't you tell me where you got the chains from and what the deal is with your eyes? What about my eyes? They're different again. The outer parts of your eyes are silver now and some parts of the stars are covered up. All in all, it just makes you look more exotic. But we'll worry about that when Sanosuke pops up. Now, about those chains. I don't know. I went to sleep with my right arm hurting and had another weird dream and woke up with these chains on. I haven't bothered to take them off and I don't know what they do. Don't they hurt or pinch the skin? Not really. In fact, I don't feel them at all. And the length behind my N is long enough that I retain all motion of my arms. It's like they're molded to my skin. Weird. Well, let's train a bit, shall we? I have a new dance for you and I'd like to see you do it. Maybe Sanosuke will show up at some point and we can find out what your new gift entails. Before we begin though, I want you to fight me without your hammer. What? Why? Because I want to make sure your taijutsu isn't getting rusty. Naruto merely nodded and got into a rough stance. Having never been formally trained in a style, he was more or less a brawler, albeit a tactical and practical one. His thoughts centered around the thought that if you were going to get hit, why not take the punch and lead into something of your own? His thoughts were broken when he heard the sound of steel leaving a sheath and saw Tenten settling into one of her stances. Oi Tenten, what the hell? I thought we were practicing taijutsu. You are. I'm going to attack you with my katana and I want you to block. Don't try to hit me, just block. Before he could respond, she darted forward and swung at his N. Without thinking, he backflipped out of the way and stood ready again, but was startled when she glared at him and began tapping her foot. I said block, you moron. Don't flip away and don't dodge, block. But Tenten, no excuses. She swung again and he dodged to the left. The pattern continued with her getting more and more frustrated, until she finally snapped. You block this next strike or I'll stick this katana up your ass sideways. Do you hear me? I'm your sensei, now do as I say. Naruto didn't say anything, he just snarled and when she swung he batted the katana away with the chains on his arms. He was too caught up in his rage to notice the smirk on her face. He didn't realize it yet, but those chains were a perfect defense against kenjutsu. He could knock an opponent off balance and make a strike easily, getting inside the guard. Tenten backed up and settled into a low stance. The dance of burning leaves was a quick, fast-hitting sword style that made quick jabs and fast cuts, darting in and out before ducking back and coming in again. Making small precision cuts on the F and coming back again to deepen the cuts more made it a style for shorter swords, but Tenten was nothing if not versatile. She darted forward and thrust the katana at his chest and heard the clank of metal on metal before he twisted the tip of the sword between two links and thrust his arm away. She pivoted on one foot and swung the sword behind her, finding his other arm in the way. This continued for several minutes until she got tired and backed up, before falling on her butt. Damn, how dare you keep going like that? I just do. Now what the hell was that all about? I could have been hurt. I don't think so. This was a lesson on the defensive capabilities of those chains. You didn't even realize that, did you? No. I guess I should have though. I've really only thought of the offensive capabilities, not the defensive capabilities. And what would those be? Catching an enemy off guard, snatching their weapon out of their hands, using the chains to choke them from behind. It's too bad I can't control them with chakra or something. I'll find out what they do when Sanosuke comes back though. It's getting kind of late, huh? Do you need to go home? Yeah, I do. I have a date to get ready for tonight. Naruto didn't know why, but this saddened him. He was really starting to like Tenten, but if she was dating other people, he had no right to complain. She wasn't his girlfriend after all. Sighing in defeat, he put on a smile and crinkled his eyes into that foxy look. Oh really? Who's the lucky guy? Tenten had watched that little display and decided to have a little fun. Honestly, the boy might be getting smarter, but he was hopeless when it came to dating matters. Well, he's really nice and sweet, a total gentleman. I went out with him a while ago. He's kind of tall, really good body, a great ass, and he smells really nice. I think he's perfect. So you did get with Neji? No, it's not Neji. I thought we already had that conversation. Oh, yeah, well, I don't think it would be any of our group other than him, except for Lee. Oh my god, it's Lee. Tenten suppressed the urge to smack him upside the head. Instead she stood and walked over to him on shaky legs. Take me home, Naruto, I can't walk there, I'm too tired. I need to get ready for my date tonight before he gets there. We'll continue our lesson tomorrow, okay? Naruto nodded and scooped her up in his arms. She reveled in the feeling again and scooted further up against his chest. She felt so small in his arms and yet she knew she wasn't. It was just the way he made her feel. It took only minutes for him to get her home and he set her on her feet outside her door. Well, here we are. Now I want you over here at 7 sharp, you understand? Naruto looked at her incredulously. What could she possibly want him for? Not that I mind, but you said you had a date tonight, right? I don't want to impose. Tenten sighed before she smiled and patted him on the cheek, earning a confused look. She giggled and opened her door before turning back to him. I was talking about you, doofus. Now go home and get ready. Take a shower and put on some nice clothes. Remember, it's your turn to pick where we eat. Now get going. Naruto stood stock still for a moment before ambling off in the direction of his apartment. It suddenly hit him what all she had said. Wait a minute. She said I have a nice ass, and I smell nice. She said I'm perfect. Maybe I have an actual shot with her after all. He shot off toward his house, already wondering what he should wear to catch her eye. Sakura had been meandering through the streets for a while now, aimlessly walking to nowhere. Her thoughts kept going back to all the times she and Naruto had been together, how they had laughed, how they had trained together. Of course there weren't very many memories like that. Most of the times she could recall involved her hitting or insulting Naruto for berating Sasuke or offering to fight Sasuke. She soon found herself outside his apartment building. She couldn't think of a reason for why she was there, other than the knowledge that whenever she was down Naruto would comfort her. Taking a deep breath, she walked up the stairs to his apartment and knocked on the door. Naruto. It's me, Sakura. Can I come in? Silence. Naruto, I know you can hear me. I just want to talk for a bit. Still silence. Sakura began to get a little pissy. Naruto, open the damned door. I want to talk to you now. She was just about to slam her hand into the door when she felt the floor shake slightly and heard footsteps coming up the staircase. Sakura, what are you doing here? I want to talk to you. I want you to stay with us. My mind's made up. All I need is Bar-chan's approval and I'm gone. Please Naruto, don't do this. I don't want to lose another friend. You're not going to go away, are you? Not until I convince you to stay. Whatever. Look, I have to get ready for a date, so if you won't leave then come on in, but I'm leaving once I'm done. Sakura followed him inside and stopped once just inside the door. She hadn't expected the place to look so clean. It wasn't military clean, but the kitchen counter shined and the floor was reflective. The living room was sparse, just a couch, an armchair, and a shelf full of scrolls. In the sole window she could see were a few potted plants in full bloom, really difficult ones to raise, or so Ino had told her. Naruto motioned to the couch and she sat down. Would you like something to drink? Water or a soda? She shook her head no. Naruto merely shrugged and began to walk toward his bathroom. I'm going to take a quick shower, so feel free to explore if you want. Grab a scroll, read, whatever. I'll be out in a little bit. Sakura sat on the couch until she heard the sound of running water. Standing up, she looked all around the room, finding nothing of particular interest. She crossed the floor to his bedroom and pushed the door open. She was surprised at the total lack of anything in the room. Naruto lived a very Spartan existence, only a bed, a dresser, and an end table with a rug at the end of the bed. What was on the end table was what caught her attention though. There were a few pictures that dominated the otherwise bare room. A picture of their team right after it was formed, a picture of Naruto, Shizune, Tsunade, and Jiraiya at a hot spring, and a picture of Naruto with the third Hokage when Naruto was a little boy. The thought that that was all he had was saddening. She walked out of the room and went to the flowers. All of them were very pretty and a couple looked sly. Her thoughts didn't stay long on the flowers though, when she went back to the pictures. She knew about the Kyuubi now and knew that Sasuke knew about it. Kakashi had known all along. Naruto had shouldered such a burden and yet, he always acted so aloof, so upbeat. And she had hated him for it. Even when he had come back from his trip with Jiraiya, she had gotten onto him for every little thing. She flopped back down on the couch and put her head in her hands. She had a lot to think about. Naruto shut the water off and stepped out of the shower. He felt a lot better, and then remembered what was waiting for him in his living room. He grimaced and wrapped the towel around his waist. Cursing himself for not remembering to bring his clothes in with him, he walked out into the room. Sakura had not been paying attention to anything in particular when she heard the click of the bathroom door opening. She wasn't expecting a half-end Naruto clad only in a towel. Blushing furiously, she looked away quickly, thinking to herself that perhaps she should have paid attention to him when he was younger. Tan skin, buff body, and without the headband his hair fell in a very sea way. Naruto saw her blush and sighed inwardly. He didn't need this right now. Suddenly, he remembered that Tenten didn't say whether or not she wanted to dress formally or not. A quick cry of, Kuchio's no jutsu, and a small toad appeared. Hey boss, how's it going? I'm Gamasuke. Pleased to meet you. Hello there Gamasuke. I need you to run an errand for me if you will. Sure thing. What you need? I need you to go to Tenten's house and ask her what I should wear this evening. Can you do that for me? Who the hell is Tenten? Naruto sighed and picked the toad up so that it was eye level with him. Tell me Suki, can you sense my chakra? Yeah. So if you were lost you could find me again, right? Yeah, but I don't know where you're going with this. Tell me, do you like sweets? Oh yeah, I love sweets. Gamakichi says that his summoners always give him sweets. Well, if you do this for me I'll buy you 2 pounds of candy, okay? But you have to make it back in under a half hour. But I don't know where this Tenten lives. Don't worry, I'll take care of that. You might not like me after this, but I'll still buy you that candy. Okay, that sounds good. Hey wait. Naruto opened the window, calculated the trajectory needed since he could see Tenten's apartment from his window, and chucked the unsuspecting toad across Konoha, right through her window. Turning to a wide-eyed Sakura, he shrugged his shoulders. What? Tenten was brushing her hair out when she heard a faint squealing getting louder and louder before a small object came hurtling through her window and landed on her bed. She immediately grabbed a kunai off her dresser and got into a defensive stance. She nearly fell over when the lump on her bed began to speak and it was cursing her man. Stupid summoners and their stupid errands. I swear I'm telling the chief when I get back. First time in the human world and I get this crap. Chucked halfway across a city and then I'm expected to make it back in a half hour. I don't even know who this Tenten chick is. Freaking moron of a summoner. Tenten watched curiously as the little toad ranted and raved about summoners before it hopped around and faced her. She seed her head and leaned back against her dresser. Hey lady, you ever heard of a Tenten? I'm supposed to find her and ask her something. I might know her. What do you have to ask her? My so-called summoner asked me to ask her what she wanted him to wear tonight. And I have to be back in half an hour with her answer or I don't get any candy. Oh you poor thing. Who's your summoner? Uzumaki Naruto. Tenten tried to stifle her laughter but couldn't do it since the poor little thing was so downtrodden that it might not get some candy. Gamasuke looked very irritated at her and hopped off the bed. Well, if you're not going to help then I'll be on my way. Stupid humans. Tenten caught her breath enough to snatch the toad off the floor and nearly started laughing again when it puffed itself up with indignation. No, I'm Tenten. So Naruto threw you across Konoha to ask me what I want him to wear, huh? That sounds like him. So what? He your boyfriend or something? Tenten blushed heavily. Well, it's nothing official yet, but I'd like that very much. I think we need to go out a few more times before that happens though. Aha, sure. So what do you want him to wear? I was just going casual. Nothing fancy. Can you tell him that? I'll add a pound of candy to whatever he's giving you. Gamasuke thought for a moment. If these two always summoned him to deliver their messages then he'd get a ton of candy. It was worth it to get thrown across a city. And if he learned how to get from here to there, then he wouldn't have to be thrown anymore. Yeah, this would definitely work out. Sure, I'd love to. I'll leave right now. Gamasuke hopped out of her arms, onto the bed, and out the window. She leaned out and watched as the lively little toad sprang away to return to Naruto. She giggled and continued with her hair. A soulmate like Naruto was definitely interesting. Naruto had settled down into his chair, still clad only in his towel, and had listened as Sakura gave her argument for why he should stay. She had swore that she and Kakashi would change and would be better friends if only he wouldn't leave. In reality, he knew that would never happen. Kakashi would always be a perverted slacker and Sakura would always be an obsessed bee. Look Sakura, my mind is made up. Unless soon it tells me that I can't leave, I'm gone. And if that happens, as soon as I can rise in the ranks, I'm still leaving. If she says I can't leave, she's just postponing the inevitable. End of story. Sakura stood and her eyes told the story. Tears were welling up at the corners of her eyes and her teeth were grinding. She couldn't remember a time when she had been so mad. Her hands had balled into fists so hard that she was drawing blood. Well, fine. Forget it then. If you can't see past the past, then I have no further reason to try to be your friend. I hope you do get transferred. You don't want to save Sasuke anyway. She slammed the door so hard that Naruto thought it would fall off the hinges. After checking that it was still operable, he flopped back down in his chair and looked at the clock. Gamasuke only had 5 minutes left. He sighed and tilted his head back. He only had an hour left before he had to pick up Tenten, and even if the little toad didn't make it back in time, he'd buy him the candy to make up for throwing him across town. He was startled out of his thoughts by the sound of something slapping against his door. Padding over, he opened the door to find a huffing and puffing Gamasuke. I made it. Do you have some water? I'm a little parched. Naruto nodded and picked the winded toad up and sat him on the counter before putting some water in a sake dish. Gamasuke slurped it down quickly and caught his breath. So, did I make it in time? Absolutely. You made it with 2 minutes to spare. Now what did she say? She said dress casual. When do I get the candy? I'll summon you tomorrow after I go to the store. I promised you £2, correct? An affirmative nod was his answer. £2 it is then. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? With a nod and a wave, Gamasuke disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto chuckled to himself. He always managed to find the most interesting summons. Running to his room, he began to get dressed. Even in casual clothing, he wanted to knock Tenten for a loop. Tenten sat on her couch in the living room, wondering how the date would go tonight. She giggled when she thought of the little toad who had been flung through her window. That was so Naruto. She owed that little toad a pound of candy and it had been worth it. She'd have something to tell Lee, Neji, and Guy tomorrow at least. It wasn't every night someone had a summon hurled across town and into their bedroom. She snickered again. Naruto was probably the only person in the world with balls big enough to be mean to his summons like that. Even Orochimaru feared his boss summon. Naruto seemed to just not care. It was a good thing that Gamabunta liked Naruto, or he'd have been a long time ago. She glanced at the clock. Only 15 more minutes. Naruto walked briskly to his destination. He had a good feeling about tonight. Since his little altercation with Sakura was earlier, he wouldn't have to put up with her again. This put him in a decidedly good mood. Just once he'd like some time with Tenten that wasn't interrupted by a teammate or curious friend. Pausing at her door, he straightened the non-existent wrinkles out of his clothes and knocked 3 times on the door. Tenten was off her couch before the second knock came. She just couldn't wait to see him again. She opened the door and gave him an appraising glance, up and down. She preferred him in more formal clothing, it just brought out something regal about him. Seeing him in a pair of baggy black pants and a white shirt with a black leather jacket was a good substitute though. She had a smirk on her face as she watched him look at her up and down. It felt good to be appreciated. Naruto couldn't take his eyes off the girl in front of him. It was a good thing that she wasn't allowed to wear that when they trained, or he'd never get anything done. Clad in a black tank top and a blue skirt that came down to just a few inches above her knees, Tenten was dressed to K. It was hard to keep his eyes off her, and he knew that other guys would have that problem as well. The mere thought that others would be ogling her made his blood boil, but he couldn't tell her to change into something else. It just wouldn't do. She ushered him in and he closed the door. Tenten was trying hard not to giggle at his obvious attraction to her. If only she'd noticed the boy sooner, she could have gotten in a few more years of teasing. She settled for walking in front of him on her way to the living room while sashaying her hips in a sensual manner. It was getting very hard for Naruto to keep his mind on the date and not Tenten's ass. Gulping and trying to keep his eyes on the back of her head, he followed her obediently to her living room. Tenten sat him down on the couch again and told him she'd be back in a minute. Naruto decided to get in a little training and calm himself at the same time. Slipping his shoes off, he walked up the wall and sat down on the ceiling in the lotus position. Taking deep breaths, he began to calm himself down. Tenten had only gone to her room to retrieve her lace and put on a little lipstick, but thought that letting him calm down would be a good thing. She sat down on her bed and flipped through a kunai magazine for a few minutes before standing and straightening her skirt back out. Figuring she'd made him wait long enough, she crept back to the living room. Last time he had turned the tables on her. This time she'd get him for sure. Poking her head around the corner, she couldn't help but smile. Naruto had his eyes closed while he meditated and wasn't particularly paying any attention to his surroundings. She thanked her landlords for her low ceilings and tiptoed as quietly as possible until she was face to face with him. His hair hung limp and she had an almost irresistible urge to reach out and run her fingers through it, but that would ruin the surprise. Instead, she puckered her lips and kissed him. Naruto's eyes flew open and his eyes darted around, but he settled down when he realized it was Tenten. Deciding it was better not to struggle, he leaned into the kiss until she pulled away. Since he was already looking down, he couldn't help but notice that her BS were very prominent in that tank top. Being able to look down her shirt wasn't helping his concentration any either. Tenten noticed where his gaze was and looked down at her BS before smirking and looking him in his eye. Like what you see? Or would you prefer a better view? That did it. He lost concentration and fell to the floor with a thud. He groaned and sat up while rubbing his head, trying to ignore a giggling Tenten. Grumbling about seductive witches, he accepted her hand up and slipped his shoes back on. Tenten slipped on her sandals and they left for their supper. Deciding that ramen wouldn't be good dinner fare for a date, he chose a local barbecue joint that Chuji had said was quite good. Hopefully Chuji himself wouldn't be there. Once their orders were placed, Tenten decided to tease her date for a little bit. So tell me, Naruto, why did you throw poor Gamasuke across town? I didn't know what you wanted me to wear, so I did the only thing I could think of. I kind of had a guest at the moment, so I couldn't leave. Oh, who? Sakura. Tenten's cheery visage vanished immediately. That little pink-haired bee wasn't trying to mess things up for her already, was she? Naruto had been putting his newfound intelligence to good use, however, and saw the change in Tenten's attitude. Guessing correctly that she was jealous, he nipped it in the bud. Don't worry, Tenten, I don't see Sakura like that anymore. She came over to try to convince me not to leave the team. Tenten was startled out of her thoughts of maiming Sakura when she heard that. Why would you leave your team, Naruto? That doesn't make sense. I don't see eye to eye with them anymore about Sasuke, and I know it'll cause problems down the line. I'm just trying to head it off. Well, okay, but I think you're making a mistake. You don't have any experience working with anyone else, and besides that, you're still a genin. You've already been on more dangerous missions than any genin in history has. Why mess with a good formula? I don't know. I just think this is the best way out. Sensing that the mood had shifted, she thought a change of pace was necessary. Let's talk about something else. Hey, let me tell you what Lee did to Neji today. Supper came and went without any more incident. Naruto and Tenten found themselves once again walking by the river. He felt her shiver and took his jacket off, placing it around her shoulders. She snuggled into the jacket as much as she could and grabbed his arm, putting it around her shoulders. Surprised by her abruptness, he nonetheless gave in easily, and the two continued to walk for what seemed like ever. Unlike Naruto, who had an endless supply of energy, Tenten got tired before long. That training session earlier that day had worn her out. She let out a cute yawn and smacked her lips. Tonight was another wonderful date, Naruto, but I need to get home to sleep, and so do you. We have a hard training session ahead of us tomorrow and you'll need all the energy you can get. Now how about scooping me up and taking me home? Naruto grinned at his date and scratched the back of his head. If I didn't know any better, Tenten, I'd say that you actually enjoyed being toted around by me. You certainly seem to demand it a lot. Half asleep already, she nudged him and he scooped her up. She snuggled into his chest and closed her eyes. Yeah, it's nice. You're warm. And like that she was out like a light. Naruto smiled down at her and took off toward her house. Once there, he didn't bother to wake her, instead creating a cage bunchen to fish her keys out of her pockets and unlock the door. The clone closed the door and puffed out of existence while Naruto carried her to her bedroom. He hadn't expected everything to be so pink. Tenten was a girl at heart after all and absolutely adored the color pink. Tomboyishness only went so far after all. He smirked at this little bit of knowledge and filed it away. Perhaps he'd buy her something pink just to see if she'd squeal with delight. For the moment though he had a sleepy girl to put to bed. He sighed to himself, he shouldn't have dismissed the clone just yet. Summoning another, he had it take off her sandals and pull the covers back. Its task done, he dismissed it. He set Tenten down as gently as possible and couldn't help but chuckle when she whined cutely at the lack of warmth. He decided she could keep the jacket after she snuggled into it more as he pulled the covers over her. A ghost of a smile was on her face as he leaned over and kissed her forehead. It was more than a hug, but he'd found her to be an affectionate person in recent times and thought it appropriate. Seeing that she was tucked in properly, he exited her abode and made his way home, his heart light as a feather. He never heard the mumbles in her sleep as he left the room. Night, nah, to, love, you. Naruto arrived home and literally flew up the stairs. He hadn't felt this good since the last date with her. He hummed a tuneless song and opened his door to find Sanosuke, standing with his arms behind his back and a smile on his face. Hello Naruto. I assume you've been well. CSEs, and I was just about to go to bed. Oh well, sleep was for the weak anyway. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.